Will a Supreme Court limit the fight against climate change? Here's what you need to know about the West Virginia versus the Environmental Protection Agency case. The Supreme Court is hearing a case that petitions to strip the EPA's authority to regulate carbon emissions from power plants and regulate overall air pollution. The case is being called unwarranted since there's no current EPA rule on power plant emissions. But the plaintiffs, which include Republican attorneys general and coal companies, basically want to block the EPA from enforcing any future rules on emissions. They want Congress to hold that power. Why? Well, West Virginia, along with some of the other plaintiffs, are major coal mining states, and they fear that the EPA could limit their business in coal and even shut them down. Especially since coal use is on a decline as renewables and natural gas have grown as a source of power in the US. The defendants believe that if Congress were to have authority on emissions, it would lead to a constant litigation and broad delegation to a branch of government that's already known for being slow. And according to the February 2022 IPCC report, we need immediate action to halve emissions by 2030 at the latest. The impacts of burning fossil fuels are pushing society beyond the point of no return, leading to a future with constant drought, heat waves, food insecurity, and extreme biodiversity loss. But who will the Supreme Court side with? Well, it seems like the EPA, but you never know. The liberal justice all seem to support the EPA. Conservative justice, on the other hand, seem to be split. Chief Justice John Roberts said he can see how states could claim harm from rules yet enacted. Meanwhile, Brett Kavanaugh and Amy Coney Barrett, both Trump nominees, seem to support the EPA, saying the agency has the expertise to regulate such things. It's also important to note that the Supreme Court has sided with the EPA in the past. In two separate rulings, Massachusetts versus EPA and American Electric Power Company versus Connecticut, the Supreme Court said the EPA has the authority to regulate greenhouse gas emissions. So in the end, West Virginia versus the EPA might just be dismissed. But it could also lead to a narrow ruling with some limitations on the EPA. Or worst case scenario, the EPA gives up authority to Congress. Regardless of the ruling, the focus of this will be on the court's conservative bench.